Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, and we are continuing with the Elemental Masters novel because my efforts to keep going with the Didius Falco novels has fallen through, so I've got books on hold at the library, and we'll see where that goes. Anyways, so The Gates of Sleep is, like the last one, is a fairy tale. In this case, the fairy tale that is being done is Sleeping Beauty. So, as with many variations on Sleeping Beauty, instead of, actually sleeping for 100 years, we just have a temporary coma for, a day or two, really. But this is very much, a deliberate retelling of that story. So it opens with these two new parents. They're both elemental masters and a bunch of their friends. And they're there, and their daughter Marina has just been christened. And these elemental master friends are giving gifts to the child. It's a traditional thing that among, elemental mages, that if you use your magic to provide some kind of a gift to a newborn baby of your number. And so they're each giving gifts, and then before the last one can step forward and give her gift, blows in the sister of Marina's aunt, Arachne, because apparently her parents named their son Hugh and their daughter Arachne because they're just like that. Anyways, so Arachne blows in and basically says, and basically does the whole wicked fairy thing of, I can't believe you didn't invite me, and I am going to cast a spell on this child, mwahahaha. The thing is that as far as anybody knows, she's not a mage. She doesn't have any magic whatsoever. They have no idea how she even managed to cast a curse on this kid, given that she has no magic. But she does cast a curse. Anyways, the last of the friends who had not yet given her gift manages to defray the curse. And it's not she will prick her finger on a spinning wheel and instead of dying will fall into a coma. It's basically, I can shift this curse to make it less impactful. And what they basically decide is, if we wait out the curse past sort of the closing date that Arachne had given, that Marina will manage eventually that if, you keep Marina alive and out of Arachne's crosshairs for long enough, the curse will rebound on Arachne. Indeed, by the end of the book, Arachne is aware that there is a ticking clock, and that if she doesn't hurry it up, that this particular that this time limit will kick in and it will rebound on her. And so that does force her hand in certain ways. But anyways, Marina's parents basically are told, listen, you can't keep her with you. You have to get out of there and, try to basically keep Arachne's attention away from Marina, and we will haul Marina off and hide her somewhere far away from everybody so that she can grow up in obscurity and hopefully, not wind up being a victim of whatever weird magic Arachne has. And so the first half of this book is basically sort of a 17 going on 18-year-old Marina who has been raised by family friends. And the thing about these family friends is that they are artists living in the countryside. They're not, of the moneyed classes, but, they're doing well enough for themselves to sort of be probably upper middle class. And so it follows her, and they haven't told her about Arachne. They haven't told her about the curse. They haven't told her why her parents left her with these family friends. And what's interesting about that, of course, is that it does that thing where, because she doesn't know why her parents weren't there, because she doesn't know any of this, there is that underlying resentment, the why wasn't I good enough for you, but also my parents keep on writing me these letters and they don't know me and they don't know anything about me. They just make these assumptions about who I am. And it's a very, very interesting... It's an interesting thing. Of course, the explanation given is that they're concerned that, that old saw about you don't want to name the evil thing lest you accidentally call it to you. There's a long tradition in, fantasy and even genuine historical belief in magic that you don't want to name things if you don't want to accidentally call them to you. And so they're being careful and perhaps superstitious about Arachne because, well, they don't want to risk it. But what that means is that Marina doesn't know. And so she doesn't know why her parents left. She doesn't know why she is where she is, and she feels resentment and doesn't really feel anything about her parents. And so it's very, very interesting because, of course, Arachne tracks Marina down, arranges for Marina's parents' death, and then steps in and says, they died intestate. Well, they didn't, but she arranged to destroy their will. So, they might as well have, because Arachne made sure to destroy the will. Anyways, and as Marina's only living blood relative, of course she's going to get custody of Marina, who at 17 is still a minor. And it's interesting throughout this whole time that Marina is with Arachne that, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on about demon pacts and using the unfortunately not particularly safety-oriented factories of the late 19th, early 20th century as a mill for death and horror and supporting dark magics and all that. But what's very interesting is the transition that Marina's opinions about her parents undergo, because Arachne is the first person to really talk to her about her parents and offers Marina perhaps an explanation that Marina latches onto in a lot of ways, because the thing is that Arachne suggests to her that the reason she was sent away was because her mother had perhaps been a little bit shall we say, mentally unsettled, mentally unwell, that she'd had some kind of mental health issue that meant that she might be dangerous to a child. And that Marina later thinks, yes, that it was one thing for Hugh, an elemental master in his own right, to stay with his wife. If his wife got out of control or whatever, he's able to defend himself. But Marina would have been a helpless baby, and thus, if her mother had been unwell, then, they might not have been able to, then Hugh might not have been able to protect her. And it's the first time in this book, and it's interesting that it is caused by Arachne, that Marina actually has some sudden sympathy for her mother, that she suddenly looks back over years and years of letters in which her mother was, pouring her heart out in these letters about how much she loves her daughter and wants to see her again. And for the first time, Marina looks at that and thinks about this woman who has been separated from this daughter that she loves so much, but cannot be with her daughter, and for the first time considers that. And it's this interesting line where I feel like that this is a conversation that would have to be had outside the bounds of this book, where Marina really unfortunately would have needed to talk to the family friends who raised her, her aunt and uncles as she called them, because the thing about that they didn't they didn't tell her anything. They didn't even tell her that, why it was that Hugh and Elena, I think it is. His wife's name, Marina's mother's name, it begins with an A, and I don't recall what it is because I don't actually take notes, as we all know. It is Alana, Alana Rosewood, spelled R-O-E, Rose. Anyways, Alana and Hugh, that Marina wasn't told that Alana and Hugh had to leave her, and I feel like this is a conversation that we don't see in the book, and that it isn't even mentioned sideways, but I feel a little bit like they should have told her something, because Marina's complete lack of sympathy for her mother right up until Arachne actually gives her a reasonable reason for her mother to not have seen her, that her lack of sympathy is just really, really telling and unfortunate. And it isn't until the very, very end of the book, when you have the grand climactic fight scene between Marina and Arachne, when they are in this sort of metaphysical place, world between worlds, in the mind only, battle to the death thing. It isn't until that, or rather right before that, when Hugh and Alana's ghosts, their spirits, their souls, whatever, appear directly to Marina, and they finally talk to her, and for the first time Marina gets an actual complete explanation about what happened and why she was there, and why her parents sent her away. And the thing about that is it feels almost a little bit unbalanced. On the one hand, there isn't really a place for it, but on the other hand, it feels a little bit unfortunate that Marina doesn't quite get enough time to truly consider what her parents gave up when they gave her up, that they were giving something up, that they lost something with that. It's the one thing in this book that sort of, I find a little unfortunate. It makes sense. It makes complete narrative and character sense that Margarita and Sebastian and Thomas didn't tell her anything. It makes sense that they wouldn't. And it makes sense that Marina would be resentful and so on and so forth. But it's this unfortunate thing that feels a little bit off-putting at the very end, that she just sort of, all of her feelings about them have this about face without any of the expected emotional things, including possibly an angry word or two at her aunt and uncle for effectively doing their friend dirty by not at least saying that they left her not because they didn't want her, but because they absolutely had to. This feels a little bit like the kind of thing where they might have been able to get away with pulling the "we can't tell you right now because you're too young, but there was in fact a reason, and you weren't abandoned, you were sent away out of desperation to save your life, and we can't tell you anything more because magic who's it." It's unfortunate. Anyways, so this is a good one. It's a good time. It's my favorite in this series really does remain the first one, but I enjoy this one. So that's everything, and I will see you all next week.